Welcome, everybody, to the Men's ADHD Support Group. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization here to help men find support with ADHD and have a place to talk about all the things that they need to talk about, not just ADHD, but autism, neurodivergence, trauma, all the things that they've dealt with in their lives. Today, we are joined by Dr. Tamara Rosier. She's the founder of ADHD Center of West Michigan, where she leads a team of coaches, therapists, and speech pathologists to help individuals, parents, and families develop an understanding about ADHD. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Rosier. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. And part of me hates talking about this topic, and the other part of me is honored to talk about the topic. I hate talking about rejection sensitivity because, well, I have it. And if you ever want to be faced with it, write a book that makes you vulnerable and then show the whole world and then see what happens to rejection sensitivity. So, yeah, I still work through it. Everything we're going to talk about today, I still work through. And I'm saying that just because it's just something we all have to work through. Okay. So, as we get started, this is my disclaimer. This presentation is not for the weak. In other words, if you're really not ready to confront yourself and your thought patterns, you're not ready for this talk. And that's okay. Be kind to yourself. Anytime I do this presentation, I run the risk of people getting very angry, like, well, Tamara, you made it sound so easy. Oh, no, sir. I promise none of this is easy. All of this is hard, and rejection sensitivity hurts, but we have to challenge old habits. We have to look at old stories and old excuses. So if you're ready just to stop surviving and start growing, this presentation is for you. So that is my disclaimer. All of this has been adapted from my second book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family. So RSD is real. It is wired into like how we process the world, but it doesn't mean it can't be rewired. So your brain treats any disapproval or perceived rejection like it's a survival threat. Your brain goes in full lockdown mode. ADHD brains are wired to run on interest, challenge, novelty, urgency, and that's just our wiring, right? And I'm sure you're already familiar with the interest, challenge, and novelty. That's not mine. That's from Dotson. But you have to understand because we're wired that way, RSD is real. It's wired in. And when it kicks in, the brain zooms in with its telephoto lens, and each problem gets big and everything else disappears. I want you to think about just the last time you experienced RSD. For some of you, it might have been today. And sometimes you don't even know it's RSD. Like someone close to you might say, hey, it really hurts me when you do this. And your brain hears that as rejection and you start to fight, right? So if you are joining us live, would you just hop in? Hey, when was the last time you experienced RSD? Go ahead and put your thoughts in the chat. All right. So I'm not offering an easy fix, but I am offering you a different way to think about RSD. So I want you to think about survival thinking versus transformational thinking. We're going to go through, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to explain it. Yeah, I'm going to get a little nerdy. Okay. You've been warned. But I think if we can understand what survival thinking is and really start to embrace transformational thinking, I think we can do a better job. So survival thinking is our default mode. By the way, this is the default mode on brains who have ADHD. It's because the prefrontal cortex, that part right on your forehead, that is where our executive functions are housed. And our executive functions kind of will weed out like, this isn't really a threat. Don't pay attention to this. No, no, no. We use a lot of our limbic center, right? Where we have kind of fight, flight, freeze, appease, and then also it's the seat of emotions. So we tend to use that part of the brain. So we're kind of in the default mode of survival thinking already. So we're always scanning the environment going, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean for me? So survival thinking tends to be tunnel vision. You react now, you fix it, and you're kind of trying to make it stop. And the telephoto lens means like you're magnifying the immediate threat. One time I was in a car accident, or I wasn't in a car accident. I'm in Michigan and I'm driving down the highway and my car hit ice. And it was one of those days where there were cars strewn all over the side of the road, all kinds of accidents. And my car was spinning around and around. I'm just like, I'm just sure I'm going to get in an accident. And the whole thing slowed way down. I was in survival thinking, and my brain literally slowed it down, and all I could focus on was my car turning. In fact, one time I looked as it was spinning, and there was a car heading right toward my infant daughter. And I thought, okay, this is it. Survival thinking starts to like take quick snapshots. And even though that happened very quickly, that's all I could focus on. I wasn't thinking, hey, what did I pack for lunch today? Oh, I hope the diaper bag doesn't spill in this event, right? I was thinking only about survival. Now, survival thinking is good in certain situations, right? That's how our brain is supposed to work in true survival situations. So I know this is a busy screen. Don't panic, but I want you to look at this. And I just really want to get into our heads what survival thinking is. Okay. It's urgency and reactivity. Everything feels immediate, high stakes, dangerous. Now, remember, sometimes it actually is, right? Remember a time when you actually used survival thinking? It was really good. One of my clients saved someone who was choking in a restaurant a couple weeks ago. That was survival thinking. This person's choking. I can help. It was fast movement. Now, sometimes, though, when we misuse survival thinking, it's emotional driven and it's out of fear, anxiety, anger, shame. And you're making choices that are quick, but not rational. Here's where RSD starts to get in. When you're misusing survival thinking, you tend to over personalize. Everything kind of gets interpreted as being about you. One of the favorite things I say to myself to manage myself is, Tamara, this might not be about you. You might have just had a bad day. Don't make it about you. A lot of times we have control seeking behavior. In other words, I feel out of control if I feel like I'm going to get rejected. So, Shane, I think you mentioned this before we started. I'll hurry up and break up with you so I can stay in control if I feel like you might reject me. A lot of times there's blame and defensiveness. How many times have you been in fights with someone you love where you just end up blaming each other? That's because both of you are in survival thinking. When you're in survival thinking, you lose the ability to see someone else's point of view. Survival thinking is exhausting. A lot of times you're stuck there. And sadly, you're disconnected from your values. You're disconnected from what's really important to you. When you're in survival mode, your thoughts may sound like, oh, this is urgent. I've got to do this. I need to fix this or I'm screwed. If I say no, everything falls apart. If I mess up, I am a mess. I need to explain myself more. I find my clients really, really always like, I just want to explain myself. If I explain myself, I believe people will understand me. Well, that's not necessarily true. And a lot of us on this call today are over explainers. So we'll think about that a little bit later. Okay, so the real problem is you're starting to believe your thoughts as true. So let's take this where your boss says, "Hey, I need to talk to you tomorrow." Well, I don't know about you, but immediately I go to 10 ways how could screw up. Oh, and by the way, if you're ADHD, you probably did have a boss like that at one point, right? You did have a boss who was kind of on your case. I know I did. She just didn't like me and she hated my ADHD. So when she said, "I need to talk to you," she literally was rejecting me. So my brain's like, "Cool story. We're going to store this for next time. Next time anyone says this, we're going to be real careful and we're going to try to protect you from that." And that's where RSD kind of takes root. So survival thinking is fast, narrow, emotional, ego driven, and it reacts and it doesn't think. All right. So I want you to think about today. When were you in survival thinking? Now remember, we're not supposed to live in survival thinking all the time, but we can't get angry when we are in survival thinking, right? It's just going to happen. Our brains tend to be wired that way. So we're going to, as we think about this, think about it without judgment. Okay. So if you would pop in, if you're listening live, just pop some thoughts into the comments. Think about how you may have been in survival thinking just today. All right. So what does this have to do? Survival thinking and RSD are so related because rejection sensitivity doesn't just cause emotional pain, right? By the way, I do want to be very clear. I get this is incredibly emotional painful. RSD kicks off this survival level reaction in your brain. And it's your nervous system that is so afraid of rejection or even the possibility of it that it thinks that there's a threat to your safety, identity, or connection. And you respond with fight, flight, freeze, or appease. That's why it feels so intense. That's why literally your heart starts racing, your thoughts start spiraling, and you either blow up or you end up shutting down. So RSD feeds survival thinking, and survival thinking magnifies RSD. You get this like nasty little cycle going. RSD flare up, survival thinking. You react. It reinforces the RSD. Then you get an RSD flare up. Then you go to survival thinking and you get the drift. So I hope you're wondering right now, okay, so I see the problem, but what do we actually do about this? So the only way out is to learn to think differently. I mean, truth be told, I guess if you never wanted to have rejection sensitivity, another way is you could live off grid, never see another human, only have dogs because they tend not to reject you. You know, you could do that. But I think learning to think differently is probably an easier route. So enter transformational thinking. It's a new operating system. Okay, this is where people start to go, Tamara, this is really hard and I don't know if I can do it. That's okay. This is a training wheels situation. So I want you to understand, I'm going to explain ideas and we're just going to try it out. We're not going to shoot for perfection, but we're going to try it out as an alternative. So transformational thinking slows down our urgency, expands the field of view, and it balances your logic and emotion. It protects your identity, not your ego. Let me pause here a second. I'm sure you guys know what ego is. Ego is this thing of where you're trying to prop yourself up to make yourself look good, to protect it. Identity is the sense of I know who I am. Okay. And we're going to talk about that in a couple slides. So, ego is this kind of out there polishing, performing, impressing. Identity is these are my values. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. Transformational thinking prioritizes internal stability over external control. And we're going to talk about more about that. And it doesn't need approval to take action. So transformational thinking looks like this. Here's the first one: intentional response over reaction. So all of us have these knee-jerk reactions. And if you have ADHD, you probably have more knee-jerk reactions than the average neurotypical. That's because, remember, our brains are wired differently. But when you're intentionally and transformational, this is where you become unstoppable. This is where you're like, you train yourself. I'm interested if anyone on this call has ever done martial arts. If you have and you're watching this live, put that in the chat. Martial arts is so interesting because you have to train your responses. So I didn't do as much martial arts, but I did a lot of kickboxing. And the first time I was kicked right under my arm, it hurt a lot. And I was so angry. And I made all kinds of mistakes, right? And the person ended up winning the match. And, it was just a practice spar, but still, I made a lot of mistakes. Eventually, I knew how to control my reactions when I was sparring. So you're training your brain to have an intentional response. 2, you're emotionally grounded in decision making. And so you acknowledge your emotions, like, whoopsies, that really ticked me off. But you're not letting them drive you. Okay, back to when I was kickboxing, I hated getting kicked underneath my arm. And I'm like, oh, that ticks me off. Manage it. Don't start making emotional responses and choices. What kickboxing taught me about transformational thinking was I needed to slow down, even though I had to respond quickly. I had to slow down my thinking and not become emotional. So transformational thinking looks like taking ownership without shame. I don't know how many of you guys are in important relationships, but it's really hard when someone you care about says, hey, you know what? You didn't take out the trash. That really bummed me out. Where rejection sensitivity hears that as, oh, crud. He or she's calling my whole self into question. I might be a bad person. So either we start fighting or we shut down. Instead, there's another option. We own it. And it can sound like this. You know what? It feels really gross to own this right now, but you're right. I'm not sure what happened. And I'm going to work on it. And if the person keeps trying to shame you, you can even say, now this is more of a, black belt kind of thing. Hey, I took ownership. I'm doing everything I can do right now. And I will be working on it. Now that was a kind of a black belt moment. I don't expect you guys to leave here being able to do that, but just taking ownership for your part of whatever. The thing I love about transformational thinking is this calm confidence. And so uh, one time, I just love this example of calm confidence. And by the way, you're going to hear from my experience. I have an ADHD resume. When I was younger, I was a youth pastor for a couple years. And I had the opportunity to take 25 young people to the Dominican Republic. I had never left the country before, but why not lead a whole work trip, right? And so I left this, we gathered like extra toothbrushes and clothing and all this stuff that would really help this small city that we were working with. We get there, we get under those yellow fluorescent lights, and every inch of our suitcase gets searched. And we are on the floor trying to shove everything back into our overpacked suitcases. And we're starting to get a little bit antsy. We're really concerned, like, is this normal? What's going to happen next? And I remember looking over, our senior pastor went with us. I remember looking over at him, and he's very calmly just rolling his skivvies back into a roll, shoving them in his suitcase, and just very calm. And I just remember saying, my students were like, "Tamara, what's happening? What's happening?" I said, "I have no idea. I've never done this, but watch him. If he freaks out, go running. If he doesn't freak out, we're good, guys." And that was my first exposure to what transformational thinking could look like. He was calm, confident. He didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, he traveled more than I did, but he wasn't in a rush. He tolerated the discomfort without losing his composure. And by the way, this calm confidence in uncertainty, whew, I mean, that's my goal all the time. Okay. In fact, I have a sticky note on my desk that says calm confidence in uncertainty. That's really my most recent goal that I'm working on. So I'm a coach, so this comes pretty naturally now to me, but curiosity over assumption. So let's say someone says, "Hey, I'm not really happy with this about you," right? Rejection sensitivity says, "Oh crap, I got to fight, I got to shut down, I've got to do something." Well, you could choose curiosity over assumption. So when you're in transformational thinking, you're like, "Oh, help me understand that. So can you tell me more?" Not give me an example, but it's more like, "Can you help me understand what you're seeing?" You're recognizing that others have different perspectives, and you might agree with it or you might not, and that's fine. Number 6, we're developing resilience and flexibility. You adapt instead of shutting down. So transformational looks like clarity about boundaries. You hold your ground without any aggression or apology. The other day, I had to hold my ground. Someone's like, "Well, I think you're stupid for doing this and this and this, and you should do it differently." They didn't actually call me stupid. Okay, maybe you caught me. That might be my rejection sensitivity. But you know what? That's how I heard it, right? I had to take a deep breath and say, "I'm sorry. I do it this way." I said, "I'm sorry. I don't apologize, but I'm Midwestern, so I'm sorry comes out kind of like a breath." Ownership without shame. All right. So, for those of you who are with us live, I'd love for you to put in the comments about a time when you knew you were in transformational thinking. I'm going to describe what it looks like. And Shane, I'd love for you to come back on and kind of read some of the comments so that people in the recording can catch this.
While we're waiting for somebody to do that, I think one of the times I actually have a good example for myself was I definitely deal with anger issues. I've dealt with them all my life. It was, I deal with that kind of struggle. And I had just started therapy. And one of the things that the therapist told me is she's like, look, in the moment, you may not be able to stop the reaction, right? But you can take a step. And I just
Mhm.
want you to take this one step. Apologize for your part of it, right? Take ownership of your part of it, of the way that you react. And I remember my children, they just had driven me up a wall one day. And I yelled. I lost my temper with them. And I stopped after the damage was done. And I said, sorry about that, kiddos. I reacted very poorly to the situation. That's my
Mhm.
fault. I'm working on being better. Right? And I didn't feel the shame, I didn't feel the guilt. I felt bad, obviously, I felt bad
Mhm.
because it was a bad situation, but my kids were just being kids. They were just doing kid things, and as a father of 4 with, multiple autistic and ADHD people in my kiddos,
Yeah.
that's hard, and I remember my daughter, like, running up to me, she's like, "I understand, daddy, I get mad at Liam all the time," and she just gave me a big ol' hug, and I just
You're right. Liam is a jerk.
And I remember, like, this is what the therapist was talking about. I can make the mistake,
Yep.
and then I can turn around and I can own it, and at least start to be better. And from that point forward, every time I was about to have that point of reaction, my brain would sit here and kick in, breathe, just stop and breathe for a second.
Yep.
You need to walk away. So instead of that voice that's always in my head, like react, 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 I was able to just like, I'm able to stop and breathe and just move, and now it's stop, breathe, advocate. They're like, hey, I need to go take a walk for a little bit. I'll come
Yeah.
back. Let's have a conversation about this situation because I'm feeling really hurt. And that gives
So,
the other person time to wait, what what I hurtful? And then think about how they said it and like,
mhm.
and have some actual productive conversation after the fact.
So transformational thinking is slowing everything down. But there's also, you are putting yourself of who do I want to be in this moment? Well, I don't want to be a dad who yells. And so transformational thinking is, wait, I don't want to be the dad who yells. So I'm tying myself to my values and saying, all right, I'm going to do this differently.
I want to do some comments. Jeremy
Yeah.
says, I cannot change most external things. My power comes from realizing I have the power and responsibility to challenge my own perspective. I must own my perspective, which helps me dismiss my shame. I love that so much.
I hope that's written somewhere like on a post-it and on your bathroom mirror, because that's the only thing we can do.
Hmm.
That's the only thing we can do. So this transformational thinking, and I would love to check and make sure that people are understanding the difference between survival and transformational. Because transformational isn't about defending yourself. It's not about, yeah, but you have to understand what I'm thinking. You have to hear this, right? It's you're really slowing down to go, wait a minute, who do I want to be in this moment? So there are times when people will reject you and it's going to hurt. I'm telling you, it's going to hurt less if you can be in transformational thinking. It will still hurt. Rejection hurts. That's just a given about what transformational thinking is. And I'm hoping you'll keep it near you so you can go, "Oh, okay, hold on. I think I'm in transformational thinking." And then you might slide back to survival or what you pull back into thinking. Now, I do have to say, you're not going to live in transformational thinking. If you're hungry, if you're sad, if you're tired, that slips you right back into survival. Okay? So don't have these important conversations. Don't have these thoughts in your head if you're hungry. So if you're rejected and you're like, "Oh, I just really want to just think about this and be angry about it and, really mull this over in my mind." Go have a sandwich first. Get that need taken care of, and that increases the likelihood that you're going to be in transformational thinking. Transformational thinking isn't positive thinking. I'm not saying, hey, just think happy thoughts and write in your happy thoughts journal. Nope. It's an entire perspective shift. And I'm trying to get across to you that transformational thinking is, and by the way, some people are like, well, this is part transformational thinking, this is part survival. Nope, this is dichotomous. Either you're in transformational or you're in survival. Okay, it's one column or the other. But it's not bad when you go to survival. It's just not, sometimes survival isn't as helpful to you. Okay. So now we're going to start to train your brain. So we want to notice when you are in survival or transformational. So there are a couple steps, but I want you to start to notice when you have conversations, when people are kind of, you're starting to sense your spidey senses are going up, that maybe survival thoughts are coming to your head like, oh, he hates me, or oh, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get laid off. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And sometimes, even if they're true, we can train our brain to hit the transformational mindset. So when RSD strikes, all right, this is hard. And this is why I said this isn't for the weak. This is going to take a lot of courage. So notice survival thinking and gently challenge. Don't, now's not the time to go, here are you big dummy. You're in survival thinking. That's not going to help anything. So gently challenge yourself. What am I not seeing right now? What else could be true? If this wasn't personal, how would I handle it? I'll be real honest. That is my key question. If this wasn't personal, what would I say? If this wasn't personal, how would I answer this email? If this wasn't personal, how would I handle that request? Please go back and anchor this to identity and to your emotion. Ask, who do I want to be in this moment? For me, a high value I have is kindness. I want to be kind. And so rejection sensitivity and survival thinking isn't worried about me being kind. In fact, it wants me to be selfish. Protect yourself, Tamara. Don't be vulnerable. And so when I ground myself and say, who do I want to be in this moment? Ask yourself, is this thought helping me be the best version of myself? Oh my gosh, I don't know about you guys, but I'll just be going through my day and in pops in my head just something really crappy that someone said that made me angry. And then when I really searched that emotion, I really felt rejected. But I'm more of a fighter than a shutdowner, right? So I'm like, oh, so dare they? Oh my gosh, what a jerk. I wish. And I just start going down that trail and land right in survival thinking. So try to stop myself. Is this helping me be the best version of myself? No, it's not. And so I reorient myself to my values. If you don't know your values, one homework I would love to give you all is find 3 to 5 values that you really believe in. Like, I really believe in these values. And like I said, my top value is kindness. My second one is showing grace. Oh, well, that makes survival thinking in an argument nearly difficult when I really ground myself to those. And so anchor yourself and really, this takes like forethought to do this. You can't just do this on the fly. Who do I want to be in this moment? Sometimes if I'm struggling, I'll say to the person, you know what? I really want to be a kind person. And I'm not even sure how to do it right now because I'm feeling rejected. I need a second to figure this out. And I kind of ask for a timeout. So when RSD hits, interrupt the pattern as much as you can. And if you're in the is this fact, fear, or a feeling? Now, a lot of Gen Zs get mad at me when I say this. We don't have to trust every feeling we have. Feelings are an informant. They tell us stuff, but we don't have to trust them. So sometimes thought pops in my head and a feeling supporting it going, Tara, you should have been really mad about that. She was rejecting you. And so I have a choice. I can challenge that. Like, okay, is it true? And that feeling's like, yeah, that checks out. I'm pretty sure you're being rejected right now. I can challenge going, what else could be true? What if she's not rejecting me? What if she's saying, giving me some feedback? Or if she is rejecting me, have I survived something like this before? Well, I'm pretty old and I have survived a lot of things. So I can dig in and go, you know what? If it is true, I can survive it. It kind of helps you look at RSD and go, you know what? I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. The next step is to build flexibility. And you practice zooming out. Some of you guys might want to go for a run. I like to go outside. I like to work in the garden. I have a younger student who takes a wiffle ball bat to a tree to practice zooming out. However, you need to zoom out to build your mental flexibility. You have to get out the energy of your body and then allow your brain to go, okay, what's the big picture of this? And then you have to rewire through repetition again and again. You've got to practice this. So survival thoughts are just habits that are kind of wired into your brain. So we're going to change the habit. So we're going to challenge them, and you need to do reps. This is hard work. You might need journaling, coaching, therapy, sticky notes all over the place, but you're going to use self talk and you're going to replace. What if they're not rejecting me? Or what if this is rejection? What if I can be okay? What if their thought of me doesn't matter as much as I thought? This is all taking control of your mind. I was working with a client the other day and she's like, "Well, I have RSD, it's just that. I can't change it." I'm like, "Tell me, what do you mean you can't change it?" She's like, it's too powerful and I'm not powerful." And she has such a solid belief that she is a victim to RSD. And I'm trying to convince you there's another way. It's not simple, but it does require training. So becoming, that word. I don't know in YouTube if this is appropriate to say, but it's probably my favorite word. And here's why. It's not by being invincible. It's not by numbing yourself, but it's thinking strategically and not as a reactor. You're taking center stage of your life and you're saying, okay, RSD is a real thing for me. And by the way, RSD is a real thing for me every day. I have to work through RSD. Before we got started today, someone in the live audience said, "Yeah, I'm always puzzled because I go between kind of great self esteem to feeling like rubbish." That's not exactly his words, but that's my words on his thoughts. And it feels like when we have ADHD, like we flip him back, like, "Hey, you know what? I'm not that big of a mess, am I? In fact, I'm pretty good at some things." And then 10 minutes later, we get an email. We're like, "Oh, I'm rubbish at everything I've ever touched." Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So we're going to start thinking strategically and not like a reactor. So here's what you need. You need to get a plan. You need to get perspective, and that's the survival versus transformational thinking. And you need to practice all of this with patience. And you need to keep practicing it. So the first thing I want you all to do is just to get hyper aware of, is this survival thinking or transformational thinking? Survival or transformational? So saying no to RSD means setting limits with yourself. There are times I want to ruminate on something. I want to just really be sad, angry, desolate about what someone said to me, or I think they said to me. I set a limit. I'm like, "Tamara, you are not allowed to spend this much time on it." I've also learned to tolerate the discomfort of anticipating rejection. And I'm hoping that you all engage in this mental training. I'm hoping that you engage in this way of living your life with transformational thinking. You're going to be unstoppable. Someone said to me something that was a comment that was really snarky. And a lot of people were around and everyone looked at me like, "Holy crud, that was snarky." You know what? I've been doing this training for a while. And I was able to smile and go, "No, it's actually this way." And just corrected the information and moved on. 3 friends came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh my gosh, can you believe how snarky that was?" And I think in the past, I would have been tempted to feel rejection. because I really respect this person. I thought her approval meant a lot to me, but that was a kind of a moment where I looked and went, maybe her approval doesn't mean that much to me. All right. Shane, I think we're ready for questions.
All right. Thank you so much. First off, that last part is so important. You know, it got me thinking about sometimes people's opinions don't matter, especially if they're like a comment section on YouTube or Instagram where they're just a faceless person who may not like what I do. And I look at it and I go, is there anything for me to learn here? No? Cool. I'm going to move on with life. Because
We
I was
can't
looking
jump there though, right? Like I can't just say, "Hey guys, others people's opinions doesn't matter." Because if I'm in survival thinking, my brain is so locked, I can't unthink this, right? So I have to get to transformational first. And
Mhm.
you're in transformational when you're like, "Yeah, I'll take whatever feedback he has, but I got to move on."
My start comes out whenever I talk to my friends, though. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the men's group. And we've got a Discord channel for all the leadership, and we've got a Discord channel for all of our members. And sometimes I'll go into the Discord channel and the leadership and just be like, all right, am I being too snarky here in my response? Because in the moment, I was upset,
Yeah.
breathed, but I was upset and I responded. Am I being too much here? Like, am I responding?
Yeah.
And I give feedback. No, that's appropriate. No, that person's trolling. That's definitely some struggles that they're dealing with. Not your issue. You responded great. Thank you so much. It's good. And then they'll pop in there and just like, hey, man, I don't know if you understand how unkind some of the words you just were to this person.
Right.
And that person, it's actually happened just recently. That person came back, sorry about that. I was in a moment and I didn't read what you said originally. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I could have just like gone off the handle and completely blown that up, but instead it turned
Yeah.
into a learning moment. And it's things like
That's
that that keep just reinforcing why.
Yeah, I want to take what you just said and add to that. So, what I would love for people to do is to share this paradigm with someone else. When my husband and I were first kind of working through survival versus transformational thinking, one time we showed up at this place and this guy was such a jerk and he was like provoking us, like, well, show me what you got. Like, just kind of trying to push our egos. And I was trying to stay calm, but I really wanted to punch him in his face. Okay, I know I sound like a violent person. I'm not. But in that time, I really wanted to. And I had to take a deep breath. But I remember getting on the phone call to my husband. We had driven separately, said, okay, it was kind of a business meeting. In this meeting, do you think I was in transformational or survival? And, listening to my husband give me feedback, like, okay, so you were tempted to go to survival when he said this. And you did start down that road, but you corrected. And so learning the difference when I'm in transformational, I'm unstoppable, which means they can't harass me. I can't be rejected in the same way. Like I'm not looking for it. And so I'm hoping that everyone on this call will find at least one person in their lives to go, hey, here's this paradigm. I'm trying to live more in transformational. I'm not a robot. I can't do it 100% of the time, but I'm trying to have critical times in my life where I do more transformational. And
Mm.
so, Shane, thanks for that example.
All right. So I've got a couple of questions that were sent to me that I'm going to go ahead and ask. The first question is, how long does being or changing into the transformational mindset take?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you for that question. I want to clarify. So, I am happy if I can have 60% of my day in transformational and the 40% in survival. That's a happy. Okay. So, we always are going back and forth. I mean, yeah, there are those people, probably Gandhi, Mother Teresa. They probably found transformational thinking 99.9% of the time. Read stuff about Mother Teresa. She was really something. So maybe her rate is lower than Gandhi's. But, we're constantly going back and forth. What I'm trying to convince you of tonight is I want you to train yourself to go into transformational thinking so that when important moments come up, you can go, okay, I want to be in transformational thinking. This idea is a paradigm. It's not just a stop, think, don't react. This is a wait a minute, who am I? When I'm in transformational thinking, I'm showing the best parts of Tamara. So the answer is, I don't know if you want to be Gandhi, that's a whole life's work. So good Godspeed on that. But otherwise, for the mere mortals among us, you're going to go in and out. I have a personal rule. I don't have deep conversations past 9 with my family members. Why? Because Tamara is in survival mode. I want to calm down. I want to do whatever. I mean, I've been grown upping all day. I've been using big girl word. I don't want to have to be in transformational thinking. So I try to delay those conversations if at all possible.
So I appreciate that. Another part of my brain also goes into everyone is different. This is a journey, right? And we need to also kind of take into consideration our own circumstances, right?
Right.
If you're in therapy, you're working with a quality therapist that understands ADHD, you're getting support from a psychiatrist or your doctor, you've got a decent support network. It's much easier to go into transformational thinking when you've got less stressors in your life. But if you're already in survival mode because you're not sure when you're going to eat next, you're worried about food for your kiddos, you got to have more grace for yourself and do your
Yep.
best. And just kind of
Yes.
keep that in mind.
Yep. And still, you're trying to even remember, you're trying to be calm in the midst of chaos, right? That's what transformational thinking allows you. So, Shane, can I answer 2 questions that I saw? I was sneaking peeks. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, one question was, how do I know my values? And guys, transformational, I mean, I could teach a whole class on this, right? I just tried to cram it all in to a short session for you guys. But I would start with, what are your values? And each and every one of you, you need to know your values. What are these core things that I live by? A coach can help you figure this out. A therapist can help you. Or if you're like, no, I'm a kind of a self starter, you can go online and you can find like a worksheet, like, how do I find my values? I do it with clients where I make them do a sort, like, which one's more important, this one or this one? And we keep sorting until we get the top 5, and it's tough because I have a lot of values that I think I uphold. But when push comes to shove, what are the values I really have?
I'm gonna
So, yeah.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug because I have a values sheet that I
Oh, perfect.
for people to that talks about your values and strengths, and it kind of lists out a whole bunch of stuff. I want to mirror this one with I cannot explain how important values understanding is, because it's a framework that you can fall back on and say, how would a kind person respond to this situation?
Yeah.
For me, continuous improvement is one of my biggest values. How can I continue to improve my life and my world, and how do I be better in this moment? Now, obviously, if I'm angry and frustrated and snap, no, I'm not going to, I'm in survival mode. But when I can think about it, okay, what are my values? And falling back into those, super valuable there.
Yeah. So, another question I want to jump to, Shane, if that's okay.
Hmm.
The question is, how do we get into transformational mindset when we're dealing with work situations and customers? I work in IT. When I'm customer facing situation, I'm feeling RSD creeping in. I don't have the luxury of asking a customer to give me grace or just take the same steps. You're right. Hey, you being in a transformational mindset has nothing to do with the other person. So I'm going to say that again. You being in transformational mindset has nothing to do with the other person. The other person can be talking crazy And that's what makes you unstoppable because you're in the right mindset. And so you refuse to go to their level. Sometimes I put it this way. Let's imagine someone in survival mindset. Their back really hurts and they're bending over and they're bending over at the waist. Okay. And you're standing straight because you're not in pain. You're in transformational thinking. And the person bending over says, "You think you're so cool that you're standing up straight." Right. Well, I refuse to kind of bend over because I'm not going to bend because that's going to be me going back into survival. And so I'm going to remain solid in my unmesswithable state. So here's what it could look like. Let's say someone's on the other side and they're just losing their stuffings at you. And the customer starts to go, "You know what? You're really bad at your job because you told me blah, 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 blah," and they're just unloading on you. How would you think if you were in transformational thinking? What would you do differently? I hope you're starting to formulate the answer. Let me give you an example. One day, I was running late. It was a Friday, and it takes all my strength to run on time in my office, especially on Fridays. I'm just tired. I was running 15 minutes late. I was doing some parent coaching. The parents came in, they sat down, and this guy was bugging out. He's like, "You must be a lousy coach. If you can't even manage yourself, and if you're running 15 minutes late," he just unloaded on what a horrible person and how bad I must be. By the way, this is the first time I ever met him. And I sat there because uh, that day I happened to really have been in a great spot and in transformational thinking. So I sat there and I remember thinking to myself, I have nothing to prove to him. I am a good coach. I'm a darn good coach. And he went on to really assassinate my character. I waited for him to run all out. I said, "Okay, we have two choices. Either," and they had a hard stop. I said, "Either I won't charge you for today, or you can just leave now. Either is okay with me." And he's like, "Well, what are you going to say about yourself? Aren't you even going to defend yourself?" And I said, "No, I have nothing to defend." I apologized in the waiting room that I was running late. "Well, why? Why were you running late?" And I just said, "Well, I have this thing called ADHD, and running on time is difficult. And I didn't do well at it today." And I just stayed very calm. I focused on my breathing. And sure, did I think it was a jerk? Yeah, okay, I'm still human. But in my head, I'm like, I have nothing to teach him. So I stayed very calm. And guess what? Oh, and I said, we don't need to work together. I can help you find another coach." That wasn't a threat. That was just a, "We'll help you get to another person who might be able to help you more." His wife just kind of sat there and his wife, had been ticked too. After about 15 minutes, he's kind of sobered up and said, "No, I really want to work with you." I said, "Okay." We ended up having one of the best sessions. And then afterwards, he's like, "You are really good at what you do." But I didn't need him to tell me that. I had to be calm and trust that I knew what I was doing. Is that making sense to you? I'm hoping that makes sense to Mike, who asked that question. And anything that person said to me couldn't shake me. Now, sometimes people catch me off guard. Yep, that still happens to me. That time, I happen to have a solid grip on transformational thinking.
So I respond to that, but it it also works to have scripts, especially if you're
Yeah.
in sales, right? Like, have a script that says the client is super angry at me and things that I cannot control. And then here's your canned answer that you can give them that's empathetic, that's in the moment, and fall back into your training, right? You already have
Yes,
scripts that you have to follow.
that reflects transformational thinking.
Hmm.
And the key is I'm trying to just nail this into your guys' brain. This is a different way the entire world tells us to think in survival. You
Yeah.
watch any show, you watch reality TV, let's just talk about that. That's survival. You watch politics. Everything in our world says stick up for yourself. You will be rejected, you will be hurt, get tough. The world is dangerous. And I have the audacity to show up and go, no, let's think different, okay? I get this might sound ludicrous to you guys. And I just want to be honest. When I first started working through this concept myself, I was like, oh, does it mean I'm going to get walked on and taken advantage of? No, because in transformational thinking, I have great boundaries. I know who I am. I've tied myself back to my values.
So I've got a question. It kind of ties into something you said and triggered my thought on this. The question, let me find. Oh no. So the question is, I feel a lot of rejection when I try to explain to somebody that I have ADHD, and that's why I deal with some of the issues I deal with. How do I get people to not reject me or tell me that I'm using ADHD as an excuse?
Yeah. Isn't that true? I mean, yeah. So here's the thing, we have to do the pre work. We have ADHD. You know that your working memory is probably as crappy as mine. I'm offering an explanation, not an excuse. So let's just play this out. Shane, can you pop back on and we'll just play it out? Okay.
Sure.
Hey, Shane, we've been working together for a little bit and I've been late on a couple projects. And I want to explain, not to excuse my behavior, but to explain to why I struggle. Now, that was really difficult because I'm saying, please don't reject me. Right.
Mhm.
Even I was saying it going, and I know Shane, right? She's not going to reject me for ADHD, especially. Right. Now, let's say Shane responds, say something jerky, say, be a jerk.
Why are you using ADHD as an excuse? It's a made up thing.
Oh, good one. Good one. Thank you. Okay. Now, instantly, I am pushed back to survival thinking, right? Survival thinking is like, oh my gosh, Shane, I didn't realize you were such a jerk and blah, 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 blah. Right. Instead, but I can go, well, this was my attempt to try to help you understand me, but that's okay. I am going to keep working harder at those deadlines and then leave. That's it. I don't have to keep explaining. I don't have to keep trying. I don't have to try to win Shane over. I can say, I just tried. We've all been there. Oh, yes.
I cannot. The reason I wanted to get that question answered, because it's a tricky question for me, because like having ADHD sometimes sucks. Having autism sometimes
Mhm.
sucks. And like for when people invalidate like the struggles that I have and the struggles that so many of us have and things like that, I mean, I hit fight mode so fast. I hit fight mode so fast, but at the same time, I also understand this can be a learning opportunity if this person actually wants to know. Sure, the initial question and the way that they phrase it and the way that I phrased it just now, yes, 100%. But
Mhm.
I can come back and say, I just want to explain ADHD is not an excuse, it's a reason. I struggle with these things and it hurts and it sucks sometimes. I really do try my best. If that's not good enough, help me be better. How
Mhm.
can I be better? What are some ways? And then having a conversation.
But don't put that out there if it's not safe.
100%, 100%.
If because rejection sensitivity, there's a people pleasing side, right? The people pleasing side go, okay, I want you to like me, saying, give me all the feedback you can, and I'll take it, and I promise I'll do better. Instead, I'm if you do the well, Tamara, you're using it as an excuse. Okay, well, that's hard to hear. Now you understand the why I struggle. Or, now you've heard why I struggle. And I just stopped talking.
You're done. Yeah, 100%. Also, what we just did, by the way, y'all, do it with safe people that care about you and say, "Hey, can you role play some stuff with me?" For my Dungeons and Dragons friends, y'all get this. However, it actually does work. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to role play certain circumstances out and actually get a place where that's how you get to transformation is through experience, right? It's not an instantaneous thing. So, any other questions? All right, Braden, go ahead.
Yeah. So when you have someone that has very high anxiety, that kind of creates a RSD of their own. So when discussions happen and they tend to get heated pretty quickly because both of you are in survival mode, how do you balance that?
Okay, so let's start with when you have anxiety, are you in transformational or survival?
Survival.
Yep. So it's probably good to postpone the conversation if you can until you can get a handle on that. Now, some people are like, great, I'll never have another conversation as long as I live. That's not what I'm saying. But now, sometimes, now I am married and it's really hard because I talk about this stuff. And so when I screw it up, my family loves to go, hey, didn't you write a book about this or something? That's great because, I'll go into survival mode too, right? And so if my husband and I are both in survival mode, one of us goes, time out. We're both in survival mode right now. And it's our way we have to step back. We can't have this conversation right now. If it's a good night and one of us is in survival mode, ready to go, I can't believe you did this, and the other's in transformational, that's good. I'll take that. Because one of us can go, hey, I hear your concerns. I don't think we're in a place to talk about this right now. And if someone's in survival, they want their pound of flesh. You're like, well, we're going to talk about it right now. Transformational, we don't have to move from that. So, Braden, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. And I think
Okay.
it definitely, I think it's important that one of you at least is able to say, we need to step away from this and come back to it later.
Or just going to do the time out. We're both in survival. We're hurting each other right now. And this isn't good. We're using words to cut. Time out. Like, I literally put my hands up like this. By the way, I'm a fighter. And guess who I married? Another fighter. Ooh, we've been married for a long time now. Let me tell you, the first 5 years of our marriage, drunken goat rodeo. Because I would go into a fight going, you know what? I might lose, but I might lose an arm, but you're going to lose the war. And I was just ready to fight tooth and nail.
So we have two more questions. Shane, I'm going to get to your question after Christian. Christian, do you want to come on video and ask your question real quick, or audio? You don't have to.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was actually really insightful on several levels. One of the areas I was curious about is applying the transformative thinking mindset to when you're having rejection sensitive dysphoria that prevents you from doing things. The example I have is that I avoid LinkedIn like the plague, even though it's a big part of my job, because I'm terrified if I say the wrong thing, or I think that people I want to reach out to who are mentors or could be potential mentors are going to not want to talk to me. Is there any aspect of this that can be applied to getting to the action that you're putting off?
I love that you asked this. Okay, so it's very important when you start your day. I would love for you to go through the checklist of what transformational thinking looks like. I would love for you to go through the list and kind of just get in your head. Like today, before I go on LinkedIn, where all the scary things are, I am going to rehearse this. And I'm going to go through of saying, okay. And you're kind of training your mindset. And you're going to argue in your brain, your survival brain, kind of imagine, an angel and a devil on your shoulder, right? Survival isn't really devil because we need it sometimes. But the survival's arguing, going, no, Christian, don't go there. We've told you not to go there. Scary things happen there. People are mean. Just don't go there. And transformational thinking is like, it's okay. You could go there because you can't be hurt. Yeah, you might feel embarrassed. Can you still do it? And transformational thinking starts to be more rational, less emotional. And it's calmer and it's slower. And it starts to say, well, what will we come across? Who do I want to be today? You know what? I'm going to practice courage. That's one of my values. So I'm going to be courageous today. And so it's so interesting. You described a kind of a preemptive RSD, right? And so much of RSD, or our RSD, is preemptive. Like, I want to hurry up and try not to, be rejected. So I'm just going to avoid whatever, whether it's email, LinkedIn, whatever. By the way, I put things out on social media, and my RSD kind of peaks up in survival thinking, goes, people are going to think you're stupid, right? And my transformational thinking is saying, yeah, maybe. But guess what? I'm showing who I am. And if that's rejected, that's on them. Because all I can do in this world is show up and be my authentic self. And my authentic self is pretty darn good. And I'm proud of her. So, Christian, I just want you to have faith in yourself. You've got this. You can handle it. I hope that helps you, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will keep that in mind. And I think that does help. Thank you.
Yeah. We've got time for one more question. Okay. This is from one of our moderators, Shane. If I was to do a nice gesture for somebody and it fell flat or they were ungrateful, how do I prevent myself going from a place of love and being helpful to rage and resentment?
Oh, wow. Is this the best question? Shane, well done. Okay. So let's think, if I could rephrase this question like, hey, I was in kind of transformational thinking, and I'm like, hey, I want to do something nice for someone because I just love someone. And this is how I act out my values. And so you did this kind thing. And the person's like, whatever, meh. Or worse, a reject your gift is stupid. And then you go back to survival mode going, how dare you? That took me so much time and energy. And I just wasted it. Thanks a lot. You hear the survival thinking? So the challenge is, Shane, is if you can stay in transformational thinking. And if you can stay there, here's what it looks like. Wow, that's really disappointing. I kind of took a big risk. I did something that I thought you would like. And I'm really angry that happened this way. And if you're so angry, go take your anger out, right? Have a punching bag or run or do whatever you do to get out the physical feeling of anger. But don't let it get you into survival mode where you want to retaliate, where you want to say something nasty, because you're undoing what you were trying to do when you were in a transformational mindset.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how awesome this was.
Okay, Shane, I have to tell you, when I do these presentations, I have to face rejection sensitivity. And so I just want to thank all of you for being kind and really trying to put things together, because I really am trying to really hit hard this new way of thinking. Last thing I want to leave everyone with is there's freedom in this new way of thinking. There is so much freedom. And it's not I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. That's not what transformational thinking is. Transformational thinking is being part of your best self, going, wow, that person lives an unhappy life. I'm not joining you in that. I'm choosing this life. And even though life can be chaotic, you can feel like, oh man, I'm just making it from day to day. You can still find transformational thinking.
Yep, 100%. All right. I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who came. This was an absolutely amazing event. You know, we do weekly calls on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern and on Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about this and a lot of stuff in our peer support groups on Zoom. If you're interested, you can either check out our meetup.com/men's ADHD support group, or you can check us out on Facebook in the men's ADHD support group, private group. Come join us, right? This is a safe space for men to be able to talk about those issues and the struggles that you have. And we want everybody to walk away from this with the understanding that we are here for you. And we love all of you. And again, thank you so much, everyone.